Welcome to the Japan Business Show. My name is Eric Ahona, and today we're talking to Aya Omura. Aya is an interpreter in the automotive industry in the United States for Japanese and English. Aya, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Aya, tell us a bit about your background and what has eventually led you to become an interpreter for English and Japanese.
Well, my background, like personal background. Okay, I was born in Japan, moved to the States when I was 12 with my family. And then after high school, I went back to Japan for university, ended up quitting, uh, came back to the US. And as far as after I came back, I worked mostly retail. Didn't know which direction I wanted to go in life for the longest time. And then finally, when I was living in New York back in 2010, 2012 or something, I was working like three jobs trying to just survive basically and always broke. And at that time, I was working retail, but merchandising, basically setting up displays and taking care of inventory for multiple brands. And I felt like it paid me, but I felt like anybody could do this job. And I was also still broke. And so finally I got fed up and I was like, well, what can I do that's unique to me? That makes me different, stand out. And the only thing I could think of was my Japanese English abilities and that I thoroughly understood both cultures. So I decided to go into the interpreting field, ended up getting a certification in medical interpreting, got my foot in the door, worked that job for a year or so. And then finally, an agency called me and asked me if I wanted to go to Tennessee for interpreting position at an automotive company. So that was my first manufacturing experience. And since then, I've worked at different sites, but mostly manufacturing. And now I'm in Huntsville, Alabama, working at another plant interpreting.
Very interesting. And tell us a bit about how you became actually an interpreter because did you go to a school for that or was it on the job training? Because you were mentioning that you medical interpreting. How did that go?
The medical interpreting? Okay. How, sorry, you cut
No,
off. So
my
tell me.
apologies. Yes. So how did you start to get the certificate as an interpreter? Was there one just for general interpreting and then you specialized on medical interpreting, or was it specialized from the very beginning?
So I think there are schools out in California for interpreting, but how I got to taking medical interpreting classes is that I was looking for work and there was a posting for a position and I applied for it and which ended up being a medical interpreting position. But because I had zero experience and I had no knowledge on medical field, they suggested I take this class. And at that time I had like $2,000 in my account and the classes it was like $700 and I was like uh, okay, I'm just gonna pay this money and take this class just so I can get, you know, wanted to gain confidence by taking some training. Um, so I did that. And it's not that I was interested in medical interpreting, that was just an opportunity for me to get my foot in the door. Because I knew that without experience, it's hard to get interpreting jobs. So yeah, that's how I got started.
Got it. Got it. And now you said that you were already interpreting on different sites, not only in Alabama where you are right now, but have you seen like any patterns, or what are the common challenges for an interpreter in the automotive industry? Is there anything where you can see, okay, it's always the same challenges that you're facing?
Well, I don't think this is unique to automotive industry, but as an interpreter, it's very difficult sometimes to interpret jokes um, because it's so deeply rooted in the culture where the joke was created. And a lot of times it's not directly translatable. And I've seen a footage of, I get, I forget where I saw it, but of like interpreters, things that interpreters commonly face, like challenges. And they were showing an interpreter interpreting between two parties, and one party said a joke, which wasn't translatable to the another language. So the interpreter tells the other person, "Well, the speaker just told a joke, which is not translatable, so please laugh. Just laugh." And I think I've had to do that maybe once or twice where I was just like, I had to be very quick, couldn't come up with the exact translation. So I was like, just laugh. He said something funny. um, it's hard doing that. And anything that's related to the cultural difference is very hard and challenging, especially when you have to be like very quick with your response.
Yeah, I
Um,
can.
go ahead.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Do you have a concrete example of a joke, of a English joke that you were supposed to translate?
No, it's just like idiom, like um, I don't know. I can't even think of any examples, but kotowaza, idiom,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where I don't even know what the speaker is trying to say sometimes, and I was like, I don't know. Just please laugh. I can't come up with any specific examples, but it happens on a daily basis, and it's very scary.
Have you seen any differences in the, I don't know how many states you've been working in. Are there differences depending on the states?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't, I've worked mainly in the southern states. Um, but like I have lived on the East Coast, I have lived on the West Coast, I have stayed in the South, and it was very interesting to me to see the cultural differences in each of these areas. Um, and a lot of the Japanese companies that I work with, they come to the States thinking, all right, we're going to start our business in the States. And they assume that they can do the things, they can run business the same way they do in Japan. Um, and it's a very big shock to them knowing that no, things are not the same. People are completely different. And I don't know if they ever adapt to that, but that's something that they always struggle with. Just dealing with people and their cultural differences. But
Are you referring in that aspect to some standards and regulations that are common, let's say, in the Japanese factory in terms of workplace safety or other procedures, or what is the part that you're referring to? That where's the culture shock for the Japanese engineers coming over here that want to implement certain things?
well, the biggest thing, not necessarily for engineers, but most of the companies that I've worked with struggled with people and retaining employees because in Japan, once you start a career in a company, you're basically there for the rest of your working life. And the companies, you're protected by the company and you work for the company. You basically dedicate your life to the company. Here in the States, people jump go from one job to another all the time, and in the process they step up and always looking for better opportunities. Japanese companies come here thinking that employees are the same way here as they are in Japan. So they spend a lot of time and money training these people, and then they're finally up to a decent level, and then they just move on. They quit and move on. And now the company has to start from scratch, training new people again. And it's just a different, in values and culture that a lot of Japanese people have a hard time relating to or understanding. That's probably the biggest challenge for them.
I understand. Yeah. Have you seen that they have tried any countermeasures or implementing, I don't know, any emphasis on putting anything in place to retain more people, or it's still the same as in the beginning?
I think they blindly try to, add more incentives to their whatever, but nothing seems to work. As far as I can see, nothing seems to work. It's like a deep cultural difference that they just can't seem to fill. I don't know. I
I,
don't know what I would suggest either.
I understand it's, and then the problem is that once you're used to training someone and investing a lot of time training and so on, and then they leave and you have to do the same thing again and again, it's kind of disrupts the procedure that you have in place, that you say, okay, we train someone for 1 year, then we know he's at this level and he'll work in this position for at least 2 years, so we've got everything in place. But if you've got continuous rotation, you can't really keep up with that schedule.
No,
And it's like
no.
training again,
Yeah.
and then he leaves and training again, another person. So I understand that's really sounds very challenging, and I can understand that for many Japanese companies, that must be very hard coming into the US or also into other markets.
Hmm.
What is in general, when you started as an interpreter, something you wished you had known before you started?
I really honestly don't wish that I had known anything. Because if I would have known, I would be too scared to jump in. I basically just got into this field completely blind because I was desperate for money and for a career. But no, it's good that I didn't know anything. It was like, oh, I can speak English and Japanese, so I'm gonna give it a try. And it worked out okay, but hey, yeah, it's good that I didn't know anything.
You, you mean because it is pretty challenging in
It's
terms of
tough.
work hours and yeah.
Work hours, and just like because it's not just about being able to speak different languages. It's about a lot about communication and having relationships with people, and um just being very quick, and I don't know, and also physically tough, like I said, standing on your feet all day, and also doing these chaotic meetings where 20 people are talking all at once, you know.
Oh wow, tell us more about that. It's like there are 20 people and you're in the middle and you have to like you're the only interpreter and you have to interpret at the same. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So a whole for a whole team. How does it work?
Well, it doesn't work. um it really depends on who you work with, who you work for. Some companies are more considerate of interpreters. Most places don't really think about how hard it is to interpret. But a lot of times they put you in this large meeting with a bunch of people, and the meeting lasts for like 2 hours, and you're constantly talking, and Japanese people talking over here, and then American people talking over here, and they're yelling at each other, and you're supposed to interpret every word of it. um, it's tough. And then
Wow.
some, it's not our job, but sometimes we have to control the conversation and how the meetings go too. Yeah.
Do you sometimes have to tell the people you're working with to slow down or say, okay, wait, I need to translate first, then you can continue? Or are you over that and you just continuously translating?
I do try to control them, the speed and how they speak, but a lot of times I guess when they're talking, they can't hear you, or they're just too caught up on what they have to say, so they don't pay attention to what you say. Um, those times I just go with it. I said, well, I didn't understand what they said, but I'm moving on, and then I continue to interpret. It's very frustrating.
Got it. Yeah. I can imagine it's very challenging and that it pushed you out of your comfort zone pretty frequently, but that it also improved your skills because
Hmm.
we talked at a separate occasion that you prefer simultaneous interpreting over consecutive because you kind of really got into the flow of simultaneously translating, and it's easier than to retain everything that somebody's saying and then repeating it in Japanese or in English. Is that right?
Hmm. I can't take notes because I just focus too much on taking notes, and I'm missing a bunch of stuff. So it's much easier for me to do simultaneous, and that way, like I am putting out what's coming in, so nothing, I guess, accumulates. Nothing piles up inside me. So I don't. So after the meeting, I don't remember most of the stuff that was talked about because I already put it out. So yeah, when you have to do it for 2 hours straight, it's exhausting. But in general, it's less tiring for me to go do simultaneous.
And let's say, for example, you have one of those 2 hour meetings with 20 or more people. What after that? Do you still need to interpret after that as well, or is that your day and then you can relax, or how does it
Mhm.
work?
Well, it depends on the day, but most of the time, yeah, I'm going to the next meeting after that. Yeah.
So it could be that you have another 2 hour meeting with many people sitting in there. So once from, I don't know, production department, then from R&D department, then from this department. Is that correct? So
Hmm.
wow. So, and what is your, let's say, a example of a day? How do you spend your day? You start in the morning at what time, and what time do you end?
Well, at this current job, I start at 7 and I go to a meeting on the floor, the production floor, the leaders and supporters and advisors from Japan. So I go do that, and that lasts about 15 minutes. And then I go to the next meeting, which is an overall meeting with all the assistant managers and Japanese advisors to talk about the day. And then I usually go to the floor to support production supporters, train local members on how to run the equipment or how to run the process. And then I may have like a regular meeting after that for an hour with an advisor and an assistant manager. And then usually from then on, it's production floor stuff, training and trials. And then maybe yeah, at 4 o'clock, I have regular meeting, overall meeting that lasts about 30 minutes. But then when we have trials, I'll be on the floor from 7:30 to whenever the trial ends, sometimes 6 p.m., sometimes 3 p.m. and then we have another overall reflection meeting for an hour or whatever. So it really depends on the day, and depends on what company you're working for, what stage that company's in their production. But from the typical day here, that's what it looks like: 7:30 to 7 to whatever, 6, 7 p.m.
Wow. So it's basically a 11 to 12 hour workday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the point is that I think many cannot imagine that, but you are constantly talking and thinking. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't stop. It's not like you just interpret like from Japanese to English. You also have to interpret back.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing that while the people are talking. So
Mm-hmm.
you are the only one that is constantly talking nonstop and thinking, processing. So I think it's something to really think about how exhausting that must be.
Yeah.
And what would you say then is a unique skill that you had that really helped you at being successful at what you do? Because you've been doing it for a while now.
Well, I think my imagination and my ability to relate to people from many different backgrounds. I guess uh, because I've had so many different jobs in the past and dealt with so many different types of people, I I think I'm able to relate to many different types of people, and that helps in building relationships, which helps in um, with imagination, because when I'm simultaneously interpreting, a lot of times, especially because of the difference between Japanese and English language, I think you would know what I'm talking about. But you kind of have to predict what's going to be said. Um, and when you don't have a lot of background information on the topic, you basically have to predict what they're about to say based on their personality or what you know about that person, or little pieces of information that you have. Um, and then you kind of basically have to connect the dots and predict what that person's about to say. So my ability to, my imagination definitely helps making that prediction and really building relationships so I can make more appropriate predictions, if that makes sense.
That makes absolute sense because I think you need to use a lot of intuition, or like what you said, your imagination, specifically because the Japanese grammar usually puts the verb at the very end of the sentence. So if you don't listen to the whole sentence, you will not know what they want to say.
Right.
But since you're simultaneously interpreting, you already have to start. And in English, usually the verb comes a lot earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So you already have to guess, okay, I think he's going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is, yeah, that's very, very interesting. And I understand it must be challenging. But I can also imagine that you've developed a kind of flow, or that you've sharpened your intuition when you talk to certain people in the industry or in the company that you're working with, that you already know now, okay, we're in this kind of meeting, so we're going to talk about this, or that kind of people. Usually that's one of the priorities for them. So it was a learning by doing approach, I assume.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And I mean, we've been in the COVID era for about a year now. How was that time for you? What were the changes? And looking back 12 months ago, maybe beginning of March, when in Japan it was already a big topic, but in the US it had not arrived yet that much. How have the changes been in the past 12 months for you and your work?
Okay, well, well, I was unemployed for a whole year, the year of 2020. And so I was missing in action through all these changes. And then, I started this job at the beginning of the year. And now we have to wear a mask, a face shield, and have to keep social distance, which is very difficult for an interpreter. For one thing, we can't look at people's lips when they talk. And I am one of those interpreters that like needs to be in your face and staring at your lips for me to fully like grasp what's being said. So that's difficult. And having to wear a face shield, uh, it makes it's difficult to hear the voice, and it's difficult for them to hear my voice. So that's another challenge. And because of the whole social distance protocol, a lot of like large meetings take place online. And when you have multiple people that you need to interpret for in different locations, that makes it very challenging because a lot of times you have to interpret consecutively, or you have to chat, basically like type up, interpret, and or translate and type up and send those the words to whoever's listening. And so I'm still having to adapt to this, and I definitely don't like online meetings. And I want to stop wearing masks, but you know, it is what it is. Hopefully it'll be over soon.
But why don't you like online meetings? Because in online meetings, at least you can see the lips and nobody's wearing a mask.
Yeah, but I have to take notes, which I suck at.
Because you cannot do the simultaneous translation. Oh,
Right.
okay, understand, understand. Uh-huh. And how was it in the beginning? Did you get laid off, or what was in March of 2020? What happened there?
Well, I left my previous job at the end of 2019 after working there for like 4 years. And then I went back to Japan to hang out with my family for a few months. And I was going to hang out for like 3, 4 months and then look for another job and come back. But that's when the whole pandemic, you know, started getting crazy. And I basically got stuck, sort of. Um, and getting stuck wasn't, I was kind of liking it, hanging out. So I decided I'll just hang out, spend time with my mom. And and then I started getting scared, like, okay, I've been away from work for so long and I need to start looking for work. And so that's why I came back.
Have you made any realization while being back in Japan if you wanted to continue to live in the US or Japan? Have you come to any conclusion on that?
No, no, it's a question still for me because you know, they're both good, but I feel more alive in the States because I work here and I have my own space and, you know, I'm independent, all this stuff. But it's so comfortable being in Japan. But I always have to tell myself, nope, no, it's comfortable, but you gotta go, live your life. And
Good.
I don't regret coming back.
That's a good point. It's always about pushing yourself just a little bit out of the comfort zone to learn and to. I think if you look back, you personally look back at yourself, I think you always feel happiest when you have the feeling that you achieved a little bit in some aspect of your life, be it business, be it relationships, be it spirituality, be it, I don't know, physically that you are more fit than a year ago or something like that. But if you make some slight achievement, I think that's kind of also one of the many keys to happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you a bit, one more personal question. Do you have any habit, skill, or routine that you have implemented in your life that has positively impacted it?
Okay. I started really applying the concept of ichigo ichie. I guess if you were to translate that into English, that would be like one of once in a lifetime
Once in a lifetime, yes.
meeting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just look at everything as once in a lifetime, whether it's a good situation or a bad situation. And I try to really indulge in each moment and learn and experience from them. And I didn't really think that before, but after doing so much of going back and forth between here and Japan, you know, you're constantly losing connections and gaining connections and experiencing new things and saying hellos and saying goodbyes so many times. And I learned that there's no other moment like this one, right? And every moment is unique. And when I started realizing that, I stopped hesitating when an opportunity arrives. You know, I'm a procrastinator, like heavy duty, just thinking and worrying and hesitating and repeating those steps. But I when I started applying this concept to my life, I started taking actions more than just sitting and thinking. So I think that's one big change that I've had in the past few years.
It absolutely makes sense to really focus more on the present moment and take every moment as it is, because many people that dwell in the past and worry about what was or what happened in the past, that tends to become some kind of depression. And
Mm-hmm.
if you worry too much about the future and what might come, that's anxiety.
Yeah.
And if you manage to really focus on what is here and now and live it here and now and let everything else be, I think that's, again, another key to a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
So, very good. Ichigo ichie, once in a lifetime. Very good.
Yeah.
My last question. What advice would you give to a foreign company that wants to do business with Japan or with Japanese?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I think about that often. Um, but I think Japan is a very unique country where there's traditional traditional ways of thinking still very deeply rooted, but they're also very innovative and adventurous and all that. But I think I think a lot of people and companies struggle, both Japanese and foreign, um, because they don't because of the cultural differences. And of course that's expected, but I think a lot of times they have a hard time respecting or relating to different culture. I think Japanese people are very, I don't know. I guess one advice would be to respect and indulge in Japanese culture. And as long as you do that, I think Japanese people will do the same. for you. And once they welcome you into their community, then you can really start thinking about, you know, being successful in your business, basically. But you really have to start from winning their hearts and really making them feel like they're understood or they're respected. I don't know what else to say. It's like
That absolutely makes sense. I think that you've just brought it to the gist of what's the most important when doing business with Japan or interacting with Japanese in general.
yeah.
So Aya, tell me, if somebody wants to know more about you or reach out to you, where can they do that? Do you have a website, social media channel?
I do have my, Facebook and Instagram, and I'm also on LinkedIn.
Where can they?
What'd you say?
Sorry, where can they reach you on Instagram?
It's Ayakaya0408.
Ayakaya0408. Okay, awesome. Aya, thank you so much for all the insights that you shared with us today. I think that was really awesome. I appreciate everything that you do. And again, I have to say, I did do some interpreting here in Miami at court. And that was maximum 2 hours. So I know how exhausting it is. And I'm not even a native speaker, neither in English nor in
Yeah,
Japanese.
yeah.
So I know how I know how tough that is, and doing that for a whole day for up to 12 hours, my deepest respect.
Oh, thank
So
you.
again, thank you so much for joining me today. This was the Japan Business Show. See you all next time.
Thank you.